Good afternoon and welcome back to another edition of Badass Marketing. I am joined once again by my favorite co-host, Angela Duns. Angela, how are you?
Your only co-host. I am
I'm gonna go
doing.
there. You could be my favorite co-host.
I'll be your favorite only co-host.
Okay. I've had co-hosts before and they weren't my favorite, so
Well, I'm glad that I'm your favorite.
you are my favorite co-host. So today what I wanted to sort of talk about, and I've just come off of an interview with a local artist that we've done some projects with, who was a muralist here in San Francisco. And the reason why I wanted to do an interview with this gentleman was he had done a mural for us on a building that had caught fire about 7 years ago. Nothing has been done with the building since. The building, basically been tagged and postered and, just an eyesore on the corridor. So we engaged with him because we wanted to begin to clean up this process, and because the building is in transition. The building has been bought. It is now going to be new construction, which is going to be affordable housing. So this brings new families to the corridor, and we're very excited about it. And we wanted to begin some beautification prior to that, because the construction is a process and it'll be a year or two away, and we wanted to sort of start to transition the building. That's the backstory. And then he was kind enough to do a series of murals on the building, and I went and saw the murals and I was like, oh, those are really pretty. and like, oh, they're beautiful, they're really wonderful. And let me just do this.
Oh, we have visuals, show and tell.
We have visuals. We do. How's that for? We do have visuals. So can you see this?
I can.
So the gentleman on the right is Swaro, and he is the muralist. He is with a friend of his who
Actually, what I see is all the thumbnails. Can you click on one of them?
Oh, can you not see this one?
Thing, no.
Okay, hang on. Sorry. Let me try something different. So are you only seeing thumbnails, or are you seeing
Yes, now nope, I got it.
Now you see Zoom. There you go. We had it for almost a moment there.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it'd be even more amazing if I could show it to you, huh? Let's try this. Let me try one more thing.
Oh, I can see it, Mike.
So you can see this, right?
I can see there's two gentlemen and a lady's face.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the mural that we were talking about. And so, I saw this mural and I was like, oh, this is pretty. This is a nice visual. Let's find another picture of it. It is not being very agreeable today. So can you see that?
Same one.
It's not the...
It didn't advance. I had to uninstall Zoom twice last week to get it to work.
See that?
Mm-hmm. Great.
Okay, so this is the first panel, and so I looked at this and I said, oh, this is, that's nice, that's a lovely picture. but there's there's a backstory here, and there is this was a woman who lived in the community for 20 plus years. She was known as the Flower Lady. She would give out flowers here in the community in Bernal Heights, and she was recently evicted from her home, and that was a big effort.
Oh,
Or a big sort of a lot of people came to her support and were trying to help her out. She ultimately did have to move, but he basically wanted to capture her spirit. She's been a community member for a very long time, and then so it's the Flower Lady, the Bernal Heights Flower Lady, and if you know her and you know that her backstory about being evicted and all that, that is trying to sort of capture that in the mural for prosperity and things like that. Then the second panel begins, if you can see, it begins with her and her flower,
mm-hmm.
and then that second panel you begin to see the petals from the flower being blown across the city background, right? So this is looking downtown San Francisco from Bernal Heights. This would be your view. It incorporates her petals
in the wind,
and then this is some of the art on the other side of the building, that has a lot of references, continues with the flower theme, and some additional Mexican motifs and things like that. So this is the other side. So the reason why I wanted to sort of talk about all this and was to, for me, when I originally looked at this, I was like, oh, that's really pretty. But, there was this backstory, this really amazing backstory, first about her and about her struggle and about the eviction, and then incorporating the different aspects of art. This idea of, blossoming and blooming as San Francisco transitions. We're obviously in a transition right now, and capturing that, and then picking up some of the indigenous art from Mexico and some of the other native folks, to sort of bring in some of the cultural aspects that have been on the corridor for a very long time. And I want to just talk about storytelling and the fact that what we initially see when we look at this art, while it's very pretty, the fact is that there's this really important story behind it, and sharing the story. And when we're looking at marketing, right, what people may see, if you don't share the story, right, they may just see something like, oh, that's aesthetically pleasing, or that's nice and stuff like that. But it's really getting into the story, what's compelling, what is, there's a whole backstory here about, starts with a building that was destroyed in a fire 7 years ago. Despite numerous attempts to revitalize the building, nothing has happened in 7 years, so it's somewhat of a blight. We had asked Swaro, who is the muralist, to come because the building had been tagged and it had graffiti and posters and stuff like that. And we wanted, as we move forward with revitalizing this building, we wanted to begin to sort of clean it up, and he did all the artwork for us, and we're very excited about that. So he brings part of the cultural aspects of the community in this art, and brings this back to the culture and to share it back to the community, and sharing it with the community. Which is interesting, is bringing some of the history as we transition forward.
Yeah.
So I wanted to just sort of share this because I thought that, as we talk about storytelling and the importance of storytelling, right, that sometimes there's really something really powerful and amazing, underneath the surface that we should be conveying, that we should be sharing with our audience. And this, really is what makes things compelling, makes it relevant. There's, with this art that we've been talking about, there's a connection with the community. There's a connection of where the community has been. Hopefully it's a transition to where the community is going, those types of things. And the importance of storytelling, whether it be in marketing, whether it be in community development, which is what we're kind of focused on here, is, why are we doing this? What are we hoping to accomplish? Who is this for? This is all captured hopefully in storytelling.
Well, it adds another layer. It adds some meaning and some things that people can connect to emotionally.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, if you just take it for face value, you're like, oh, that's nice, right? But once you get the context, you're like, oh, wow, that's really powerful. When I was talking with this gentleman, we were also talking about the Diego Rivera mural that's at
Yes,
SF MoMA, right? And just sort of the whole fiasco of that one, because it had resided at the university for years and years, but it was sort of just tucked away, so you could never really appreciate it because it was behind columns and you couldn't get a full view. And then when it was finally given a space in SF MoMA, like, it was amazing because you could stand back and capture so much of the mural and all the intricacies of what were in that mural. And then begin to get into the story and knowing the period of which it was created and the references that are captured. I don't know if you're familiar with the mural, but there's all kinds of references within there that Rivera was trying to capture about the the workers' movement and things like that. So the story, right, makes, and the context make it so powerful, and we want to make sure that when we're doing marketing that if there's a compelling story, we should be sharing it. Why are we doing what we're doing? Why, it's more than just, writing an article and finding some clip art to, complement it.
right. Right. Well, it's that human element. It's the why we're doing it. It's why you should get involved with it. It's all of that.
And especially when we're looking at, generative AI, which is, will produce content, but is somewhat generic. Generative AI can't tell the flower lady's story.
No, not at all.
You know what I mean? And it can't capture the subtleties of what's on these murals and things like that. So this is an opportunity, and storytelling is the opportunity to break out from, some generic content development through AI. I mean, there's a place for all that, and by all means, we use it. So, I'm not suggesting you not use the tools that are available to you, but really to break out of, and create something that's unique, create something that is compelling. The storytelling, telling stories of of your community and about what's going on in the background that led us to where we're at. These compelling stories, they stand out when it comes to content marketing. They are so powerful. Um, what we hope for is these stories will compel action. We hope that when you hear about this mural, you'll want to go see it. You'll want to understand what was her story, what was her backstory, what led to her eviction, and some of the problems within the city. Looking at the revitalization of the corridor. Here we are trying to revitalize a building that was destroyed in a fire. There's just so much to the story. And if we just present like one image, you'd be like, oh, that's pretty. So
Yes, well, and story is one of those things that is memorable. If you could come up with the best marketing copy ever, are we going to remember it? Maybe not. But are we going to
I mean,
remember?
some of it's amusing, right? Like, we have things like Got Milk, and that's still memorable, and we know most of the big brands taglines, but this is really about sharing about us. This is our community. This is sharing and compelling for what's going on in our community. Why are we sharing this story? Because we want to involve the community. We want we're in the midst of trying to revitalize a corridor. We're in the midst of trying to clean things up and hope that people won't retag this. So, if we share, this is what this is about. This is why we're doing this. This is why, this is the significance of all of the art and, elements within this mural. right? Because they touch on community, they touch on things that are very specific to our local community. And we're trying to make that compelling so that people will get more involved with the community, be more connected as a community.
Right. Well, let's make it more practical for some of our listeners. One of the things that I talk to my clients about all the time is, why is it that you do what you do? Their why story, or for me, one of the things that people connect to is my origin story. And origin stories can be extremely powerful too. One of my favorite ones is for Amy's, the organic fast food that's based up in Sonoma County. Her story is so compelling. It makes everything that she does much more interesting. And a lot of times people don't care about what it is that you do until they understand how you got there.
Right. And that origin story, inevitably, just by the nature of it, is going to be original. It's going to be, is not going to be something that you've found 12 other places on the internet. Because this is a unique story. This is something that's very compelling. It's also an opportunity to share with the audience something about you. So, we talk about know, like, and trust, right? Well, these are aspects of the sharing, the origin story, telling these stories, is helping us go through the know, like, and trust cycle, right? Because you get
Yes.
to know about us. And, if you understand the values that have driven us to where we are today, then you may begin to trust us, and hopefully like us, not necessarily apparently in that order, know, like, and trust. But, so this is an opportunity to share your values, to share,
Yes.
what you stand for, so that people can begin to know, like, and then ultimately trust you.
Yeah, and stories are personal. It's peeling back the layers of the onion and letting people know who you are on the inside. And everybody's going to connect to a different element of your story. So you want to make sure that you tell a complete story.
And I also think, this is also because we always, when we're talking with folks, we always like follow the money, follow the money. So, like, if you want to do things with your local community and you want to support, follow the money, follow where the stories. If you, are buying from a large corporation that supports political agendas that you don't agree with, why are you doing that? Your dollar has so much value, and if they can tell you a compelling story why you want to support a local merchant, why you want to support this merchant who also supports causes that you align with, right? I've said for a very long time that, the value of our shopping dollar is powerful, especially if we're trying to make change and we're trying to, support things that we believe in, right? We typically, and I'm not talking about creating boycotts, I'm just talking about spending your money wisely in places that support, things that you believe in, whether it's shopping locally or there's a particular cause they may give back and plant trees, they may give money to, the unhoused, whatever it might be. If you align with those, if they tell that story, that compelling story as to why they do what they do, then you can align with them and support businesses that support the things that you believe in.
Yeah, more informed choices. And I think these younger generations are definitely being a little bit more intentional
Are you
about how
suggesting we're
they.
not part of the younger generation?
I did
You
not
say
say
it
that
like you're talking about somebody else. Is that not us?
explicitly. I may make similar choices,
Yeah.
but I'm coming at it after years of experience and seeing what the power of my purchasing dollar can do.
Right. And we don't know that, right? If we're not sharing compelling stories, right? We do want to know the origin story. We do want to know why you support the causes that you do. We do a fair amount of work in the digital health space, and it's always really compelling to us when we're talking with a founder, especially in healthcare, when we're talking with a founder and their origin story, and it's like they're building something because someone in their family couldn't have access to this, right? So if it's a diabetes app, it's because their dad was struggling and didn't have the information they needed. And, rather than just complain that it didn't exist, they went out and they built it. And it doesn't get any more powerful than that. And it doesn't, because when they tell their story, it's very personal. They're talking about a family member who was struggling. They're talking about, this is what motivated them to launch this startup, to take this kind of risk. And what's even more compelling is this drive when it's about a family member, when it's about something near and dear to us. If they have an off month, they're not quitting. They're going to still keep pushing at it and make this happen because it's so important to them. And that's captured in their origin story and their backstories as to like, well, why did you do this? And like I said, especially like when we're doing work in digital health, these backstories are just so powerful.
Yes. And you can feel the passion behind it. And that's what we get connected to. I have a friend that got COVID before lockdown, before we even really knew what was going on and that sort of thing. And one of the things that he figured out was that the way they assign beds in hospitals is not exactly equitable, and they don't have a great inventory. So as soon as he recovered from COVID, he learned Python and created an app so that hospitals could connect with each other and find out who had beds, and making sure that access had nothing to do with ethnicity and that sort of thing. So, that's a passion project. And that's something that a lot of people can get behind and support.
Yeah, there's social justice, there's equity, so, who wouldn't want to support that?
Exactly. And so origin story, a lot of people say, oh, well, my story is not that special. I hear that all the time. And then they tell you your story and you're like, oh my God, that's that's really interesting. But and especially your people in digital health, they served a need. They just did it because it needed to be done. They don't think it's that special, but it is. You don't know who might be able to connect with that story in a very visceral way.
Yeah, and it's just amazing because, they took a personal problem and, the benefit will be to, patients elsewhere that are
Spreads to
struggling.
everybody.
Right. So, and, they hopefully will make some money out of that, but that's not what's driving them. They're not driving, like they're not being driven by, how much they're going to make. They're being driven by like, making a change for the better in the world.
Well, solving a real problem, not just inventing something because it's cool, solving a real problem.
But we see that in, like you could say, I'm solving a real problem by creating the next, to do app, right? Which is slightly different than solving a problem where like this is someone's healthcare. This is someone who, is suffering because it's not available. So I would say it's a little more compelling, like especially in the healthcare studies, examples that we're talking about, because, this is quality of life issues, quality of care issues, it's nice to have, it's nice to have the new app for your to-do list, but it's clearly not at the same
There's
level.
tons of those out there already.
But they're solving a problem, but this is different when you're like solving, something that impacts people's lives, not that the to-do app doesn't. So I'm not trashing to-do apps, but
Yes. But there is a little bit of a difference there. So
what do you think is important in storytelling? What do we need to capture to make a compelling story?
Compelling stories have to be succinct. You really clearly have to state what is the challenge that you're rising to meet. What is the problem? What is the need that is being filled? And then, how and why are you taking care of this problem? And then what is the result for the people who enjoy this solution? Those are some compelling pieces, and telling it in a way that it sort of flows very quickly. Challenge, solution, result. This is what's possible.
It also that sounds like our value proposition,
It kind of does,
right?
but it's a
What's the
story
unmet
arc. It's a
need,
classic story arc.
right? Probably with just our value proposition is probably a very reduced version of that, and this gives you some of the backstory to the value proposition, and gives you sort of the personal story to the value proposition, but capturing the same things like what's the unmet need in the market, why are we doing this, who do we serve, and then what kind of benefit can they expect as a result. And then we
Exactly.
couple that with our story, or why are we driven to do this, why are we what are we hoping to accomplish, who are we trying to serve, those types of things. Just really expanding on the value proposition with our origin story.
And I've heard some people compare an origin story to the hero's journey. You know, things are great, then things are not great. And you have to go on this journey to figure out how to make things great again. And then you share it with everybody. That's kind
And
of
everybody
it.
loves the hero's journey because
Yes.
it provided that the outcome is there, right?
Well, yes. Every Disney story, every, really great movie, especially action adventure movies, we cannot lay off story. Story is something that is hardwired into us.
But what's really interesting, so like I've lived in Europe for 10 years, okay? And the happy ending, of the hero story of these Disney movies and things like that is a very American concept.
Yes, it
You know what
is.
I mean? And we have sitcoms that can manage to take a giant problem and wrap it up in 22 minutes. And then next week do it again. But this idea of wrapping things up nicely to a happy ending is a very American concept. There's a movie we were watching. It was German, and we were watching in a German film festival, and I think it was called The Violin. And I think it was set in Mexico, and there was revolutionaries, and the protagonist, ultimately is killed at the end, and you can see this happening. And being an American, you're waiting for the cavalry to show up. That's the expectation, like this guy is going to get saved. But that's not the reality. And what's interesting was that, like, when this film showed it, it was very, I don't know, like I was very taken back, because like that's not how things turn out. Think like this very nice guy was supposed to be saved, and he ultimately was never saved. And not to pick on the Germans, but there was another film, it's Slosy Scholl, which I don't know if you know that story, but she was fighting against the Nazis and was fighting against Hitler. And it's a real life story. And if you know her story, you know that they kill her. So, as you're watching this movie and she's going through all this, what the ultimate outcome is going to be. You know what I mean? She's not going to get saved. Which is so hard for someone from an American audience to watch a film like this, because our expectation is the heroine of the story doesn't usually die.
Right.
And in this case, she's murdered. And, we know this going in, but even watching the film, like something's going to happen. Someone's going to save her. And they don't, because that's not the way it is. So that wrapping things up very nicely is such an American film concept.
Is we kind of whitewash a lot of things, but what still comes through in those other stories is that person's unflagging passion.
Oh, we love those stories. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we love the hero's journey, right? Where they overcome all odds and, to persevere, right? So, it doesn't get any more compelling than that. Like, despite
Right.
everything, they were, and we love that in a good founder story where, they rags to riches, those types of things. We love those stories, and they're very compelling. So they're great to tell. How realistic they are, that we can suspend a little belief there. So, just go with it because they are
Us,
enjoyable and they make compelling storytelling.
yes. And us Americans, that's another thing that we love is a story about the underdog that ends up on top for however long.
Right. Mr. Smith goes to Washington, right? There's the local guy makes good, and changes the world and, takes on evil and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we love those stories.
And so we work these. So if we have an origin story, especially if there's something that's been overcome, this is a very compelling marketing piece to share with your audience. And even if it's, you don't necessarily overcome something, your origin story is going to be unique just because it's your story. And if you can share that with your audience, it's a way to connect with your audience. It's a way to build know, like, and trust. It checks all the boxes when it comes to marketing, and it builds the trust so that people will want to do business with you.
And I have also heard that it's not a bad idea to design your client success stories after the hero's journey also, and even make your client the hero in some of those stories.
And how do you do that?
Well, you come up with whatever their unique challenge is, and then you make sure that the solution is something that you don't come up with for them. It's something that you collaborate on. You co-create whatever that solution is, and then maybe your client takes it to the next level and their growth is amazing. So that's how
Right.
you make the client a hero in the story.
And that becomes, a case study where you're like, here was the problem, here's how they overcame it, here's what they did, and here is the benefits on the other side.
Yeah, here's the solution we came up with together, and here's what they did with that solution.
Right. Right. And we do that, we use that particular model when we're doing case studies, when we're building case studies of some of the work that we've done in the past and folks that we've had the opportunity to work with, here's what we were able to build to help them overcome whatever the challenge was. Hopefully there was, we were able to help them overcome it. And then, as a result, here are the benefits that everybody is getting.
Exactly. And there's lots of different stories that, scaling stories. My gosh, everybody wants to hear a good scaling story. You get to a certain point where, there's only so much of you to go around. And how do you get past that so that you can scale your business? That's what everybody wants to hear.
But I think also, as you mentioned, there's a format to this. There's a format to the hero's journey, right? And it's this idea of, in speaking with the artist, he kind of went over a lot of ground, but it wasn't very linear, right? Whereas with our storytelling, we're trying to move the audience through a journey, right? The hero's journey, because we're trying to get them to the see the outcome and to see that. So there's, we're going to start off with, sort of a formula where we're going to start off with a problem, right? Figure out how to develop a solution, figure out, who that solution is for, and then what are the benefits they're going to realize. And this is a formula for us, when it comes to telling these types of stories.
Exactly. And you want to get there quickly.
And right, and you're trying to move them along so that they can, they get where they're going from with this journey, from problem to benefit, right?
Yes. Yes. You're painting that paradise on the other side.
Exactly. Which we hopefully are delivering as well, not just simply,
Talking about it.
right. We're trying to actually deliver that paradise, or at least the benefit that we're trying to share and like. So storytelling, tremendously compelling and popular, has so much power because especially with your origin story, the nature of your origin story is it's unique, so that you have unique, compelling content. It's an opportunity for you to connect with your potential clients, to see if you share values, if you share, like, is this who you want to do business with? Right? If we talked about the power of spending, in places that matter, right? What do they support? Does that align with what you support? Or as opposed to, like, I'm not doing business with a company, that doesn't align with that. I was going to mention one, but I won't mention. But there's a big tech company that is currently that we actually still use, but that some of the information that they're sharing on their platform is misinformation, and it's known. And we don't want to support that by buying products from them or buying products from other companies that individual owns. You'll have to figure it out if you can figure it out. But we have the option. When we spend our money, we can support people who support the causes we like, or not spend our money with people that are doing things that we don't align with.
Exactly.
Well, this was another edition of Badass Marketing. We talked about storytelling. We talked about how compelling it was. We talked about using your origin story because it's unique. Taking the reader on a journey, or your audience on a journey, to get them to where you want them to be. And hopefully they get to know and like you and trust as you share this information as well. So if you liked what we heard today, leave us a comment below. If you have any questions, do that as well. And give us a like, and we will see you on the next edition of Badass Marketing.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.